This weekend will be our last of the one another's in our sermon series. This final message is to serve one another. The gospel reading comes from John chapter 13 as Jesus gathers with his disciples for one last meal. John, who was there, wrote, "Having loved his own who were in the world, he loved them to the end." Jesus would then go on to each disciple and wash their feet. People in those days walked the same dirty paths as their animals, and so it was necessary to wash when entering the home. Important people, though, like the owner of the home and his family, had others assigned to provide this necessary hygiene. How shocking it must have been for the disciples who knew of the power and the greatness of Jesus. He truly is the owner of the home and every home. How shocking to see him removing their sandals, scrubbing between their toes. A shocking and disturbing sight, but even more scandalous than to hear that we are to follow his example. Our Lord has called us into a work where muck and menial tasks come together for no other purpose than that people who need care receive it. We are called to have the same mind of Christ, who, being in the form of God, did not count equality with God something to be grasped, but he emptied himself, and taking the form of a servant, he humbled himself by being obedient to the point of death, even death on a cross. This whole service, this idea, this teaching is not a new thought for the disciples. Jesus has been telling them many times before. For example, when they were fighting with each other over who was the greatest. And so Jesus had them stop, and he taught them, well, whoever would be great among you must be slave of all. But who would want to follow such a leader like this? And who would put into practice his upside-down words of greatness, where slaves are the great ones? Even though we love and respect Jesus and can see in a sense how his words might be true, it's not the life we pursue. We are on a different path, and we have a different teacher. Our life goal is comfort, peace, security, wealth, happiness, and to have as much control over the choices in life as possible. If serving, when and where we like, helps us reach those goals, then we could consider these words in a limited way, but most of us, we recoil at the thought, like we recoil at washing feces off of feet. But this, our hearts, it does not shock Jesus. He knows us. He knows what's in our soul, and He knows our life goals and what we long to have and what we're pursuing with every ounce of our being. That is why He must wash us. That is why He must be our teacher and we His students for the rest of our lives. But know that our Lord's way of service does in fact give us what our hearts ultimately long to have, and that is love. For now, we still believe that we know best, though, and we know what will satisfy our hearts. But Jesus, our teacher, our Lord, and the one who washes us, leads us in the path of service, humility, self-sacrifice, because it truly is the way of love, and that does satisfy the heart. To be filled with the love of God and to give that love to one another in service is the life of greatness. It was for our Lord and teacher, and it is for all of His students as we follow His example. We will spend then the rest of our lives learning from Him how to serve, but washed clean in His self-sacrifice at the cross. Now don't worry, I left some good stuff for the sermon, so please come this weekend because we need one another.